Who would you believe that the person who hurt you the most remembers everything they did to you? Carl Jung said once, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That famous quote from Jung didn't tell you this, though. And what I'm about to say will break every belief you have about people who won't admit they did something wrong. You'll understand why some people can sleep soundly at night while you're still awake, replaying every word, every moment, and every painful look on your face when they lied to you. First, I'm going to tell you something that will chill your blood. They remember everything. They remember every single thing about that person who broke your trust, made you doubt your own reality, and made you think you were going crazy. Every time they lied to you, broke a promise, or just watched as you fell apart, they caused you pain. Carl Jung's groundbreaking theory of the shadow self says that we all have parts of ourselves that we'd rather not see. Jung studied patients for many years and found that the more we try to hide these unpleasant truths about ourselves, the stronger they become. But here's where things get scary. The people who hurt you aren't forgetful. They're going through something much more planned. Shadow projection, as Jung called it, is when someone hides their own darkness by making you carry it. That's not all. This pattern is even more disturbing than that. I'm about to tell you something that will change everything you thought you knew about people. Why do some people can break your peace and then go about their day like nothing happened? Jung said, when two personalities meet, it's like two chemicals coming together. If there's a reaction, both are changed. But what happens when someone doesn't want to change? Why do people choose comfort over awareness and denial over growth? They don't forget by accident. They choose to forget. Because remembering would mean taking real responsibility, which is something most people aren't ready for psychologically. Jung learned through his groundbreaking work with patients that accountability requires the scariest thing of all, real change. In his private letters, Jung said, "To fully accept oneself is the most terrifying thing." The people who hurt you have built their whole lives around the idea that they will never have to face that fear. They have built up complex mental barriers to keep away from the thing that could free them. What do you think these people are really hooked on? The nice words, "I don't remember it that way," or "you're being too sensitive," hide the fact that they don't remember something. Jung's deep studies of the mind show that people will do amazing things to protect their sense of self. He named this way of protecting ourselves the persona, which means the mask we put on to hide our true self from ourselves and from other people. Jung's clinical observation showed that when someone hurts you and then acts like it didn't happen, they're not just lying to you. They're living what he called the provisional life. This is a mental state in which someone avoids the more difficult work of self-realization by always feeling good, right, and innocent. Now, this is where things get really weird. Jung said, "What you fight will stay with you." But he also learned something even scarier. Some people are very good at making their resistance look like a problem for you. When someone hurts you and then acts like nothing happened, they're not just keeping themselves safe. They're making you less stable. They make you doubt your memories, your actions, and your whole emotional world. It might not have been that bad. I may have overreacted. All of a sudden, I feel too sensitive. Put that down right now. Jung's extensive research on psychological manipulation says that this is exactly what happens when a person's shadow self faces responsibility. They don't say sorry. Instead, they dodge the question. They pass on the responsibility instead of taking it. They make you wonder if you're even bleeding, not heal the wound. This is what Jung called psychological projection, but it's more than that. Modern psychology calls this gaslighting, making you doubt your own view of reality so the person can protect their own image. Jung learned something very important about how people act. Becoming who you really are is the greatest honor of your life. But for some, mastering the art of strategic silence has led them to something even more powerful, the freedom to never have to become anything at all. Their silence isn't a mistake or a passive response. It's a weapon. And what I'm about to say about this weapon will help you understand why you felt so crazy, confused, and desperate for an ending that never comes. That's why they seem to get stronger every time you go down. It's not emptiness when someone hurts you and then disappears into silence. It's power. Jung wrote a lot about how power works in relationships. He understood something very important that most people don't. Silence makes the person who is already hurting carry the weight of confusion. Take a look. You say everything when they don't say anything, reliving conversations, over-elaborating your feelings, questioning your actions, hoping for a response that never comes, and analyzing every word, movement, and contact, looking for signs of regret that aren't there. That's not a mistake. That's their whole plan. It helps you see things more clearly when you look into your heart. As Jung said, who looks outside of dreams? He who looks inside wakes up. But for these people, looking outside is a big part of who they are. They project their shadow onto you and make you carry the weight of their unprocessed guilt while they get away with it. Jung studied something he called unconscious competence, which means that some people become very good at manipulating emotions without even realizing it. They learn on their own how to make other people do the emotional work while keeping themselves safe from the consequences. And here's the most shocking thing about people who use silence as a weapon. This idea from Jung's most controversial work will explain why they do what they do. Silence used strategically creates what Jung called psychological dependence. The more someone doesn't give you the answer you need, the more you want to be noticed. And that desperation is perfect for them because it forces you to chase, lower your guard, and lie just to get any response at all. It makes you thankful for little bits of attention from someone who should be begging you to forgive them. He said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." But people who use silence as a weapon have found something even more powerful. They can keep you focused on their empty cave of non-response, which will make you afraid to go into your own cave of self-worth. Jung's seminal work on the collective unconscious says that we all share certain archetypal patterns. One of the most harmful is what Jung called the innocent archetype. This is the part of the mind that doesn't want to admit that it can hurt others. But Jung also found something that will make you uncomfortable. Some people don't just occasionally access this archetype. They live there all the time. They have made being innocent their whole identity, so they can never be wrong. And this will shock you about people who can't say sorry. Jung learned this from studying his most difficult patients, and it will change everything you thought you knew about being responsible. Jung found that people who avoid taking responsibility all the time have what he called unconscious competence in emotional manipulation. They don't just hurt people and then forget about it. They've learned how to hurt others while keeping themselves safe from consequences. Jung's clinical notes say that these people are suffering from what he called psychological inflation. This is a condition in which the ego gets so big that it can't handle any information that goes against how it sees itself. When you ask someone in this state to take responsibility, you're not just asking them to say sorry. You're asking them to lose all confidence in themselves. That's the reason they can't do it. When there is disagreement, when feelings come out, or when someone needs to be held accountable, they disappear, shut up, change the subject, or post something happy on social media. They hang out with people who agree with what they say happened. It's not overwhelm, it's pattern. It's not confusion, it's a plan. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. These people haven't become aware of their destructive patterns. They've made them systematic, predictable, and very effective. There's something even scarier, though. Jung's studies of what he called complex psychology show the disturbing truth about how they sleep at night. Jung looked into psychological complexes, which are groups of thoughts, feelings, and memories that can work without being controlled by the conscious mind. But what he found was even more interesting. Some people have what he called dissociative competence, which means they can separate their actions from who they are so completely that they really don't think they're responsible. They know they hurt you, but they've told themselves that they had no choice because you made them, or that you were really the victim the whole time. They have strong defenses and can change history in real time, making themselves look like heroes when they're really bad guys. Jung said, "The most dangerous thing is to live in a world of projections." It's not just projections that these people live in. They make a whole world where they're always right, always justified, and always misunderstood. And the last truth about these people, the key to your freedom, is that you can't wake someone up who is unconscious. You can't make them look at what they don't want to see. If someone wants to stay unconscious, you can't love them until they become emotionally mature. Jung's most recent writings on relationships say that the most radical way to love yourself is to accept that some people will never give you what you need, not because you don't deserve it, but because they can't. It doesn't say anything about your worth that they can't say sorry, take responsibility, or acknowledge your pain. That's information about how much they've grown. If someone is emotionally unavailable, it's like trying to get water from an empty well to get them to be responsible. It's not broken. The well is just dry. Not even hard work, patience, or love can make water appear where it doesn't exist. Jung taught people how to integrate their shadows so they could become whole and face themselves fully. But he knew an important thing. This work is not required of him. No one can be made to become aware. And now for the last truth that will set you free from anyone who has ever hurt you and pretended it didn't happen. It helps you see things more clearly when you look into your heart. As Jung said, "Who looks outside of dreams? He who looks inside wakes up." The people who hurt you are still dreaming. They're still projecting their shadow to avoid looking at themselves in the mirror. You, on the other hand, have been working. You've been thinking about yourself. You want to know the truth, take responsibility, heal, and grow. Some people have chosen to stay asleep while you've been awake. Their awakening doesn't have to happen for you to get better. Your closure doesn't need them to be aware of it. They don't have to agree with your peace. They don't need to tell you how valuable you are. The person who hurt you and acts like it didn't happen remembers everything. They just aren't ready mentally to face the truth about what they did. You no longer need to wait for them to evolve. You know what to do. Stop telling people who benefit from not understanding your pain about your pain. Don't do all the emotional work by yourself. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, Jung wrote. But he also learned that the most freeing thing is to accept others completely, even when they don't want to grow or are limited. You can focus on relationships with people who are already awake when you stop trying to wake up people who aren't awake. Stop waiting for emotionally immature people to grow up. That will make room in your life for emotionally mature people. The goal isn't to make everyone aware. The goal is to become aware enough to keep your peace around people who won't do their inner work. That is the real work in the shadows. That is real integration. That's the truest freedom. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." People who hurt you without feeling bad about it have taught you something very important about your own strength, worth, and ability to heal. They've shown you what you can't stand. They've shown you what you really value. They have shown that your peace is important enough to keep. That's the hidden gift in the wound. Knowing that you deserve people who can meet you where you are emotionally and who can be uncomfortable with their own shadows and grow with you. It was never really about you when they said sorry. It was about their ceiling, their limits, and their choice to stay unconscious. You are the only one who can change, heal, and be free. That's where your power lies. Jung said it best. Becoming who you really are is the honor of a lifetime. You already know. You're someone who faces the truth, wants to be held responsible, and believes in growth and real connection. And that's the kind of person you should look for in others. Thanks for coming along with me on this trip. If you learned something from today's talk, please subscribe and forward this message to someone who could also use it.